Last lecture, we looked at what triggered the system from wanting to, go from the old system where the military ruled to this new system. And we all know that was Commodore Perry in the United States forcing Japan to open its ports, which forced Japan to decide that they don't want to be, bullied around anymore. So they're making these changes. One of these changes is bringing the emperor in back to power, which seems kind of backwards, but you'll see why it's really not. This era is known as the Meiji Restoration. Um, so the system changed. The Tokugawa lost power and authority. The emperor is now in charge. The goal was to convince the population that the emperor's royal ancestry coming back was not a new government system, but extent, sorry, instead of restoration of imperial rule. And now the people are directly connected to the emperor, and basically, everything's going to be great now. There's no worries now, right? So this is one of the things that they had to convince the people of. Um, and although there are going to be new things, they just wanted to reassure everybody that everything's going to go back to how everything was supposed to be before the military hierarchy stepped in, which, now is defeated. So I wanted to show these pictures, because on the left you have what the emperor basically used to wear, and on the right you have what the emperor is now supposed to be wearing with this new system in place. And I want you to think about why there's this change in wardrobe. What kind of message does that send out to the rest of the world? Is that impactful? Is that important? And that's something that I want you to keep in mind, which we'll discuss during our Zoom meetings today. All right, so a new constitution is also brought in, along with restoring the emperor's power back. We have this new constitution. Japan now has this bicameral system, and they call it the National Diet. And so basically, this system, bicameral system, has two houses, just like the United States has two houses, the House of Representatives and the Senate, right? But instead, Japan has the House of Peers and their own version of the House of Representatives. The House of Peers is made up of basically nobility and senior civil servants and high military officers, people who are well established and well known and basically had power and leverage within Japan's society. So that's one of the houses. The other house, the House of Representatives, was basically people who were elected by popular demand, right? So the House of Peers isn't elected, but the House of Representatives is. So what is the role of this bicameral system, the Diet's role? Basically, the emperor, to assist just the emperor. That's all they do. They assist him in making these decisions because, running a country is pretty tough. So the emperor needs help, and that's what this bicameral system is for, and that's their main goal. So in terms of voting, how does this look? Because obviously we have the House of Representatives with individuals who are being voted in. Who gets to vote? Men, obviously, right? Get to vote, and they have to be over the age of 25. It's not like here in the United States, once you turn 18, you're allowed to vote. No. In Japan during this time, men who are over the age of 25 and over, who paid a certain amount of taxes were now given the right to vote. This seems like they're going in the way of democracy, and it's obvious, right? But at the same time, you have to understand that that population is very small. 1.14 of the population is what's represented under here. So you have less than 2% of the population voting. That's not a lot of democracy that you have happening in Japan. But nonetheless, it's a transition in towards that, at least for now. They could only vote for the members of the National Diet, specifically the House of Representatives. Nothing really else outside of that. Continuing with the Constitution, what is the role of the emperor? So basically, the emperor laid the supreme law. Supreme law laid with the emperor. He was meant to be above politics, but all decisions were made under his name. So he didn't really have to bother with all these little petty things or little small things or anything. He was too good for that. He was above that. But at the end of the day, every decision that Japan made was made in the name of the emperor. This meant that although the emperor was not expected, typo right there, not expected to make political decisions, all his subjects had to be loyal to him, expected to take advice that was offered by him with his, cabinet group and the government. He could also pass his own national laws when the national diet was not in session, and the military was directly responsible and, to the emperor. Um, so this is a lot of power that all of a sudden that the emperor has that the emperor did not have before. So this is a big change in the system, whether it seems like not a lot, but it is, because remember, before, emperor had no power, now the emperor does, right? Next one, cult personality is created at the same time. So we need to make sure that people are buying into the system. It's not enough to just say, yeah, this is how things are going to work. Don't worry. No, we need to make sure that people really buy into it. So when you create a cult personality and you get people to buy into that, you have a lot of loyalty towards the system itself. So you have this religion that's brought back in. The imperial family basically is glorified, and basically they're seen like goddesses and gods, including the emperor. They're descendants from the sun, and therefore the emperor is seen as a living god at this time. Religion, the emperor worship, and nationalism all becomes related into one and mixed in. So all of this, religion, emperor worship, and nationalism, all of this is like this very important cycle that plays a role. You can't really have one without the other, and they all kind of link up together. Anyone who questioned it got in trouble. And you're going to see why exactly nationalism is brought into all of this and how important nationalism is in creating this new system and making it function for Japan. Um, so, one of the ways that we're going to look at this is through the military and, education. That we have all these changes being made under this new system under Meiji. Um, so with education, in order to achieve the goal of having all these individuals buy into this new system, we have the goal of transitioning from samurai to modern. Um, you need to make sure that your individuals, that your people are educated. And while they're being educated, you're also introducing them to like very pro-Japanese propaganda. So this is a way that you get people to buy into it. You train them, you show them how to do things now, how to wield a gun, how to actually fight like a modern um, army, while at the same time you're showing them, hey, like Japan is the greatest country in the world. You got to respect Japan. You got to respect the emperor. Like you got to love the emperor. Soldiers were taught how to read. Soldiers were taught how to understand new basic technology, basic orders. Schooling, schooling was introduced in 1876, a little bit after 1868 or whatever, but it was not free, and only 46% of the boys attended and 60% of the girls. So it's still slow in trying to get to where they want to, but they're going to get there eventually. Through schooling, Japanese nationalism was taught, which is what I just explained. Love and loyalty for the emperor and Japan. Nothing is above the emperor, and you got to lay down your life for the emperor and, the country of Japan, because that's just what's right. And so you start off the kids young and you start teaching them that and put pretty much putting that into their heads. They're going to buy into it, and they're going to do what it is that they need to do, um, into being able to fulfill what it is that this country is asking them to do. So they were molded to be ready to go into battle and be willing to go into battle when the time comes. Um, so you have the military also at the same time. Japanese men had to serve 3 years mandatory in the army and 4 years in the reserves. This was argued to be the only way to defend the country, but also to unify it. So again, you are throwing out all this propaganda of like, if you want your country to succeed and continue and to be united and be strong and not get bullied anymore, you have to do this. The army forces swore loyalty to the emperor only. No more shogun stuff where you are, swearing your loyalty to different clans. No, now it's just the emperor. You don't disrespect the emperor at this point. Soldiers were recruited in large numbers and taught to only obey the emperor and their nation. Soldiers were not allowed to express any political comments or, policies, anything. They were not allowed to have any opinions or question them, even in private. But yeah, that's basically all we have for today. And then I'll see you for our class. And if you have any questions, let me know. All right, peace out.